Hello, I'm Brendan from Umbra. Today I want to talk to you about something I get asked about a lot, which is the new Part O building regulations for overheating, particularly obviously where it relates to blinds and curtains. So I have the new regulation in front of me here, Requirement 01, and this is for new build residential buildings only. And it says the aim of Requirement 01 is to protect the health and welfare of occupants of the building by reducing the occurrence of high indoor temperatures. And it has to achieve both of the following. Firstly, limiting unwanted solar gains in the summer, and secondly, providing an adequate means of removing excess heat from the indoor environment. And they basically set out two methods to achieve this. Firstly, the simplified method, and secondly is called the dynamic thermal modelling method. So what we're going to do in this video is very quickly look at these two methods, and particularly at the areas which apply to blinds and curtains. So firstly, the simplified method, and they split this up into two building categories. There's moderate risk location and high risk location. And on moderate risk location, the only regulation in terms of limiting solar gains is that they restrict the maximum area of glazing as a percentage of total floor area. So no relevance to shading there. But on high-risk location buildings, on top of that glazing restriction, there's also a requirement for providing shading for glazed areas between compass points northeast and northwest via the south. And they allow three options for achieving this. There's external shutters, glazing with a maximum G value of 0.4, and then finally overhangs. So there is no relevance to blinds and curtains there. They've mentioned shading but not blinds and curtains as a strategy for that shading. So in simplified method overall, there is no relevance to blinds and curtains. So moving on to the dynamic thermal modelling method, this is based on CIBSE's TM59 methodology for predicting overheating risk. So it's a third-party model, and they've basically placed some restrictions around this. So if we refer to that model, and particularly the element that refers to blinds and shading devices, they say blinds cannot be used properly if they clash with the opening of windows. If blinds are used to pass the overheating test, the report must either demonstrate that there are no clashes with the opening of windows, or the reduction in airflow due to the clashes must also be calculated and included in the model. So essentially, motorized windows, so windows that open automatically, are a big part of this model. And what they're saying is blinds cannot be used if they clash with the opening of windows. So the blinds, if the blinds are closed when the windows are open, that's obviously going to restrict the airflow. So that's simple enough to overcome if you integrate the blind control with the window control, so that either they don't clash at all, or you're restricting that amount of time that they do clash, and then include that in the calculations so that you can still achieve the parameters that they set. But the important thing to note is that there's some restrictions around this that are relevant to blinds and curtains placed by the Requirement 01. So this is that they restrict the shading devices that you can use to achieve this. So these are shutters, external blinds, overhangs and awnings. And they place a footnote saying, although internal blinds and curtains provide some reduction in solar gains, they should not be taken into account when considering whether Requirement 01 has been met. So with this one, the only blinds and curtains product that's relevant is external blinds. So as an overall evaluation of these regulations, on the one hand, I think that it's a great step forward that this has now been recognised. The importance of managing overheating has been recognised. I think it's a great shame that internal blinds and curtains are not included as a potential option as part of that overheating strategy. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks this. I know there's some work going on behind the scenes to try and change that and get internal blinds and curtains included, because it can be a very effective part of an overheating strategy. And when you take things into balance, which I think is possibly what this document lacks, I know it's been designed to control overheating, but when you look at the other elements, and I think there has to be a certain element of common sense in this, you know, for example, cost, internal blinds are less expensive than external blinds, and I'm not going to get into the internal versus external debate in detail here, perhaps that's a video for another day, but there's cost, there's effectiveness in terms of heat retention, so internal blinds are generally more effective at that than external blinds. And obviously that's as important in the winter as overheating management is in the summer. So like I say, when you take everything into balance and use a bit of common sense in terms of cost and balancing that with effectiveness, I think internal blinds needs to be in this to just broaden the range of options available to clients and specifiers needing to comply with these new regulations. But like I say, it's a great first step that this has been recognised, and I'm sure these are only small tweaks that can come about in the future. So if you'd like to know more about how specifying internal blinds and curtains can be used to be part of an overheating strategy aside from the O1 requirements, get in touch because I'd love to talk you through that. And if you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more content like this, and we'll see you next time.